there is the danger on the spiritual journey of a spiritualized ego, in which the ego self, which is really, as I say, what separates us from our divine consciousness, creates an image of a spiritual self which it identifies with. Traditionally, you actually need a teacher to tell you, look, you're kidding yourself. Somebody who knows, who can see what's going on. If you don't, if you're lucky, life will deliver you a crushing blow. And you will kind of wake up out of it. I think on the spiritual path, humility is very important. If you don't have the humility to realize you're wrong most of the time, then do something else. Nowadays most people can climb Everest or something, can't they? If they really put their mind to it, you get a guide and you go. Do that, you get real results. But I'm kind of old school, so I take spiritual life very seriously, and I don't like to see somebody wasting all their time and effort and intention with a spiritualized ego. But if you are really sincere, something will come and dispel your self-illusion. You can always, we work a lot with dreams in our path, and you can always tell when a dream is a little bit too perfect, when the spiritual states are a little bit too right, when the guidance is a little bit too good, and it smells a bit prepackaged. But it's something you really need to be careful of, and sadly in this culture, it's much easier to sell ego spirituality than real spirituality. One of the things is you can't charge for real spirituality, so there's not a lot of profit to be made from it. But ego spirituality you can market and make a good living from. So it's much easier. It's also, what is interesting is something I discovered is something is a bit corrupted, it's actually more tangible for people. If something is really pure, it's a bit too fine, it's not so visible. Real spiritual life is terribly ordinary. And that doesn't, people want to be a bit different. They want to be special. And, you can make a nice spiritual, special ego. But who wants to be just an ordinary human being? I always like this saying of Hamlet, I am myself indifferent, honest.
What should the student do in order to really benefit from their sheikh?
To benefit from your sheikh is to follow the way, because all what the sheikh, what he got it to follow the way. The real sheikh, one of the Sheikh Ibrahim is Murid from Mauritania, Muhammad Lamin Jekani, he asked Sheikh Ibrahim, the sheikhs and the Murids. And Sheikh Ibrahim said, some of the mashayikh, they are not sheikh. If the sheikh, all what he telling you to please you, if even if he want to correct you, you leave him, he will let you do everything you want to do because he just wants you to follow him. That is not a sheikh. So he said, that's the mashayikh, they worship the murid nafs. Some of them, they worship their own nafs. All what they say tell murid what make the murid to follow them. But the real sheikh is the one, if he talk, he remind you Allah. If he act, he will remind you Allah. You follow him, you reach to Allah Tabaraka.
On this path of tasawwuf, or this path of the purification of the self, heart, and soul, everything must be rooted in Islam. Anyone that claims to be a Sufi and their root of their tasawwuf or their Sufism is not grounded and totally rooted in Islam as it was described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are astray. Plain and simple. There is no tasawwuf without Islam. It does not exist. Anyone that tells you that they're a Sufi and somehow they have transcended the need to be Muslim, they are lying, and you should run from these people. But they are astray. He said Islam is first to testify that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah. That is the fundamental principle of what each and every person who claims to be a Sufi must be grounded in, is the total tawheed and oneness of Allah. Indivisible, without partner, without associate. When you are totally grounded in the concept of the absolute oneness of Allah, this protects you away from and against the worship of any human being, angel, jinn, or anything else. Anyone that comes to you and says that there's a need for a medium of a sheikh to get to Allah, they're lying. You don't need a sheikh to get to Allah. Anyone that comes to you and says, well, I make dua to the sheikh and the sheikh takes my dua to Allah, leave these people. I'm telling you, leave this nonsense, because it's nonsense. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is Islam? He said, to testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. To make the 5 salats. Salat. Make the 5 salats. The greatest form of dhikr. If anyone tells you that you can sit around and say, La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, and somehow this is superior to making salat, they are lying. Run from these people. I'm telling you. If I tell you this, run from me. They are lying. Those of you who are my students, if I tell you that I have come up with some type of formula of dhikr that is superior to salat, run from me. To establish the 5 prayers on time as they were made by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To pay the zakat. To fast the month of Ramadan and to make the pilgrimage to the house of Allah, inshallah, once in your life. Then he was asked, what is Iman? The belief in the oneness of Allah, the absolute oneness of Allah, without partner, without associate, without medium, without help. You don't need any helpers to help you get close to Allah. In fact, you don't even need to get close to Allah. What we need is to become conscious of Allah's nearness to us. Allah is not distant. Allah is near. Our consciousness of Allah's nearness to us is what we need to have. And you don't need any man or woman, place or thing to help you become conscious of Allah's nearness to you. Anyone that tells you you do, they are lying, and leave them. I don't care if they're from Europe, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, North or South America, and yes, Africa. If they tell you that nonsense, run from them.